1,000 people were killed, most by the flooding in New Orleans. The storm displaced more than 1 million people in the region.
This was an infrastructure failure. This was not a natural disaster. And one of the things that is essential is that we make sure that we secure the infrastructure in the country. Category 5 hits any major American city, much like you saw with Sandy in the Northeast, or you're going to see in Miami. We're going to be in very difficult situations. And that's why I've said to the people of America that we're this nation's canary in the coal mine on the issue of emergency response. And on a lot of things that shouldn't be political, but the one that absolutely should not is responding to an emergency. You saw right away. Everybody headed down and got boots on the ground, whether it was in North Carolina or Kentucky or the wildfires that have been crisscrossing across the South. That is a very, very dangerous thing to do because everybody in America deserves for the government to show up when and how they're supposed to.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome today's keynote speaker, Mitch Landrieu.
Hey, you guys. How's everybody doing? That was a lot of pictures of this bald-headed guy. Amazing. Anyway, good morning to all of you. It's so great to be here. It's good to be back. The word back is important in Eastern Kentucky. I want to thank the incredible organization that's hosting us today. SOAR co-chairs Governor Beshear and, of course, Hal Rogers, and, of course, the mayor, the judges, and the secretary. I just got a chance to see them. And, of course, to the executive director, Colby Hall, and his incredible staff of SOAR. Please give them a round of applause, if you don't mind. Also, the Appalachian Regional Commission, my good friend Gail Manchin, who is not with us today. If you don't know who she is, you should. She's a force of nature, and she is a great partner, I know, for all of Appalachia, and particularly Eastern Kentucky. And lastly, to all the people of Corbin, it's really great to be here. I had a chance to talk to the mayor, of course, and the judges a little bit about their incredible work, and you heard from them. I have been here, by the way, many times before, both with my not-for-profit, which is called Pluribus Unum. That's a Latin phrase that many of you may be familiar with. It stands for out of many, we are one. It is, in fact, our nation's motto. And, of course, I've been here as part of my work with the White House. I've been to Hazard. I've been to Whitesburg. I've been to London County. I actually have been to the Dog Patch Trading Post. If y'all have not been there, you should go. And, of course, you saw a video before of beautiful Pikeville, which is just spectacular. I have sat in classrooms. I have met with some of your young people. I've walked through towns that embody both the beauty and the struggle of Appalachia. And let me tell you, every time I come back here, I feel the deep reservoir of strength in this place. And I feel the strength of the people in this room who I've been able to talk to this morning. You know, and those pictures just showed it of Pikeville. There's something that is really special about the mountains that I hope you don't take for granted, that just shape the soul. The way the sun bakes over the ridges, the coolness and the ebb and flow of the streams, the deep roots that are planted by the families in Eastern Kentucky on the same land for generations. Watching the sun rise and fall, which I do with my mom and dad before they passed, you actually watch the seasons come and go, marking the time not just by the calendar, but by the seasons and the rhythm of the earth itself. It's really, really magical. I have sat for long periods of time and met with coal miners whose fathers and grandfathers worked the same mines, fueling our nation's fight for freedom. I've sat with your teachers who have watched multiple generations of the same families come through their classrooms. I've talked to your faith leaders and to congregations that have weathered every storm together, bound by faith and bound by fellowship. That's what makes this place so special. That's what makes all of you so strong. Now, Eastern Kentucky knows hardship. You know floods, mudslides, tornadoes, mine closings, economic shifts, the opioid epidemic, God forbid. You have seen your fair share, and I know you know what pain feels like. Just a few months ago in May, you saw the deadliest tornado in Eastern Kentucky hitting just up the road and barreling at night. The EF4 tornado was on the ground for too long. I hate tornadoes. They're awful. They drove a path through Sunshine Hill subdivision. So many families are never going to be the same. 19 lives lost. And earlier this year, in February, more disastrous flooding hit the region hard again, claiming 24 lives and prompting hundreds of rescues. Time and time and time again, these beautiful mountains, these beautiful waterways, the green hollers, they're pounded by Mother Nature. And you know what? More is coming. The cost is more than dollars, though it's staggering, but it's more. It's our neighbors, our culture, even our way of life. Now, when I talk about tragedy and change, I don't really have to explain it to you. You've lived it. But here's the thing. You've lived something else. You've lived the truth that hardship does not have to define you. But what does define you is how you respond to it. I've seen communities here, they lost everything in the flood, and 3 months later, they're stronger than before. Not because the pain went away, but because they chose to use the pain to fuel something better. Now, you may ask yourself why a kid from New Orleans is here, an urban center, talking to folks in rural Kentucky. Well, you know what? We're a lot the same. I came from a city that's lived through the pain that you've lived through. Before I served in the White House for a year and a half, I spent all my time on the ground. I'm one of 9 kids. I have 8 brothers and sisters. We got, between us, 38 children. We got 27 great-grandchildren. I have 5 kids. We lived in a house with a mama and a daddy and a grandma and a grandpa and 3 big dogs. Now, if anybody lived in that area, you know what it's like. You better get to the biscuit first or you're going to get hungry. But I spent time on the ground. I was a state legislator for 16 years, representing a district that put me in people's homes almost every day. I served 6 years as a state legislator in the state of Louisiana, as lieutenant governor. And I served 8 years as mayor of New Orleans. After Katrina, after Rita, after Ike, after Gustav, after the national recession, after the BP oil spill, I took over the city when it was on its back and it was bankrupt. But nothing shaped those years more than my service during Hurricane Katrina. Now, you're probably not aware of this, but tomorrow is the 20th anniversary since Hurricane Katrina changed everything in my hometown of New Orleans. 20 years. That's a lifetime for some folks. That's like watching a baby grow up from crib to graduating from college. It's like watching a seedling turn into a mighty oak. But for those of us that lived through it, who carried our neighbors to safety, who buried our friends, 1,400 people killed. 20 years can feel like yesterday. You see, New Orleans is a 300-year-old city where everything that we hold dear, our jazz and music, our architecture, our gumbo, our way of life, it's all created by throwing everything in the pot together. A uniquely American city where we're constantly reaching, for that idea of a more perfect union that we aspire to be. Sometimes it feels so far from our reach, but we keep pushing, we keep reaching, we keep striving for more, and we never quit. And here's another thing, we never bow down either. You know, people ask me what makes New Orleans special, and I tell them the same thing that makes Eastern Kentucky special. It's not the buildings, it's not the geography, it's not the bluegrass, it's not the horses, it's not the bourbon, although they're beautiful and the bourbon's good. It's the people. It's an understanding that we are all in this together, that your struggle is my struggle, your joy is my joy, and you know what? Your pain is my pain. In New Orleans, we have a saying. Don't try this. Laissez les bon temps rouler. All right, you can try it. Here we go. It means let the good times roll. Now, that doesn't mean what you think it means, that in New Orleans we're just about partying, although we're pretty good at it. It does mean, however, that we choose joy in the face of sorrow. We choose celebration even when we have reason to mourn. We choose community even when forces try to divide us, because we know, as the good book says, that joy always cometh in the morning. Always. Now that's what I see here in Eastern Kentucky, that same spirit, that same refusal to let circumstances defeat you, to let tragedy define you, and the courage to write a new story, a story of resurrection, a story of redemption. Now, the story of recovery in New Orleans is remarkable, and there are great lessons, not only in recovering, but in governing in times of change, in times of uncertainty, in times of chaos. You see, Katrina destroyed everything that we knew and that we loved in the blink of an eye. Everything we knew was gone. 80%. Are you hearing me? 80% of our city was underwater, 13 to 17 feet. Close your eyes and imagine that for a minute. $150 billion in damage, 1,400 lives lost, 1 million people replaced, 250,000, 250,000 homes were destroyed. One of the worst disasters in American history. Yes, it was a natural disaster, but it was also a man-made disaster. When those levees broke, those levees that were designed and construction and engineered by the federal government broke, and the levees failed, we had a major problem. FEMA failed. FEMA faltered. The response became, at times, political. Is this sounding familiar to the folks here? Well, let me tell you what it felt like in those first days. Too many of you here know the feeling, waking up and everything you had ever owned just gone. Your family home, the neighborhood grocery store, the school where your kids learned to read, the hospital where they were born, your church, your playground, your work. All of the memorabilia that you had in your house, your wedding pictures, your first communion pictures, all of it underwater. Mud caked. Can you smell the mud cake from the floods that you've had? I can still smell it from 20 years ago. I can smell our refrigerators that were full of food that didn't get to, that had maggots in them when we got back to it. I can still see them. They curse me at night in my dreams. But here's the thing. Worse than the loss of the buildings and the physical things and the things that hurt your heart was that we lost trust. That the ground that you walked on today would even be there tomorrow. That's a very strange feeling. You take it for granted. But I assure you, there could come a day where the ground that you walked on today does not exist tomorrow. And I think if you ask some of the folks that have been through this, they'll know what I'm talking about. But we lost our trust. We lost trust in government. We lost trust in institutions. Trust that you need when you want to call somebody for help, that someone's going to answer. When the levees failed, it just wasn't the water that broke through. It was faith itself that dissipated. The stories are seared, literally, tattooed into our souls forever. The rushing flood pulled people under. Survivors were trapped for days in their attics trying to get out with whatever they could through their roofs. People were trying to keep their heads above water. I saw dead bodies floating in the water. I saw people trying to keep themselves above the water inside of rubber tires that they found floating around, carrying the only stuff they had left, if they could, probably in a garbage bag to help keep them afloat. Close your eyes and think about that for a minute while you can feel the hot Louisiana sun blazing as citizens crowded in front of the Superdome. You saw the pictures, huddled masses outside of the convention center. Our nation sat, jaw-dropped, gaping at the images, considering the possibility that we could actually lose an entire American city, and wondering how in the world, in our beloved country, in the United States of America, the strongest, biggest, greatest country in the world, how could this ever happen? But in the midst of all of that death, in all of that destruction, in all of that agony, in the rushing floodwaters, something else happened. The next day, the sun came up. And in the hours and days and weeks that followed, another flood came. This time, it was a torrent, a flood of people of all races, creeds, colors, backgrounds, rushed into New Orleans and came in an hour of need. So many, united by their faith and civic purpose, rushed to our side, including people right here from Eastern Kentucky. Many, boosted by your hospitality and your generosity, got back on their feet and came back to New Orleans to help us rebuild. Americans helping Americans, citizens helping citizens, neighbor lifting up neighbor. And in our darkest hour, it gave me hope and restored my faith about the undying spirit of America. Volunteers from Kentucky, especially those right here in Eastern Kentucky, drove all night. You brought your tools, you brought your food, you brought water. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't wait for directions. They just showed up, shoulder to the wheel, and started working. That's who we are. That's who we are when we remember who we are and when we remember where we really came from. Now, New Orleans has spent the last 20 years not simply recovering. We have spent our time, our labor, our sweat building the city we always dreamed New Orleans can be. I want you to hear me now. The theory was that we should not build it back like it was. The challenge to build it back the way she always should have been, because we didn't get it right the first time. And so this tragedy, or these tragedies, whether they're immediate or historical, give you a chance. And that's what we tried to do. It's worth thinking about for a second because, and this is hard for any community, the night before Katrina hit, if you took stock of New Orleans on August 28, 2005, before that storm touched ground, and you asked yourself what was the state of the city of New Orleans in that moment, and freeze time for a minute, you thought about her physically, about her spiritually, about her politically, about her educationally, about her health care, about structurally and economically. You had to admit, if you were being honest, that we weren't in great shape. Now, in her wholeness, the city of New Orleans is magnificent. She has magnificent architecture. She has magnificent culture. We have magnificent people, our joy of life. But there were some parts of the city of New Orleans that were not built properly. There were communities that were too vulnerable. There were communities that were left behind. There were communities that weren't participating in the beauty and the gifts that the city had. There were some systems that weren't working very well. Education, healthcare being two of the many. You see, it's very easy and tempting to romanticize the past, especially when trauma tries to force you to let it go. But the truth is, not everything is worth preserving. Many of our schools were failing our children. Some of our neighborhoods didn't have access to better services. Some of our systems were designed to exclude rather than include. Again, too many left behind. Too many people not seen. The hard question that every community has to ask, and Corbin and Eastern Kentucky have to do this, is what do we save? What do we change? What traditions do we honor? What barriers do we break down? Now, we also learned some tough lessons about how hard it is to change. I'll never forget, you saw some pictures of me in boat rescuing people. I don't know if she's in that picture, but I pulled up in a boat to a house and there was a lady. Now, we were in fishing boats, so there wasn't many people you can fit in it. So you had to tell people, listen, you can get in the boat, but you can only bring what's necessary. And most people were in a T-shirt, maybe they had shorts on, maybe they had one bag, but they couldn't bring too much. This one woman got in a boat, and all she was doing was holding a clock. So we get everybody in the boat, and the boat's going in the dark water. We're 17 feet up in the air. It was awful. In New Orleans, I told you, we find a sense of humor even in greatest tragedy. I looked at this woman and I said, ma'am, I told you you could only bring something that was necessary, and all you got is that clock. Why did you bring that clock? She says, baby boy, let me tell you something. She said, I done just lost everything. I lost my house. I lost everything that I own. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm coming from, but I know one thing. I said, what is it? She goes, I know what time it is. That's a true story. And when she told that to me, and the reason I remember it was because it seared a truth into me about a human response to a traumatic event and people's unwillingness or difficulty with changing. She was clinging to the only thing that she knew, and she wasn't going to let it go. Now, I did not know at the time, because I wasn't mayor, that when I started to change the city, that desire to hang on to the only thing that you know and not be open to change was going to be something great. But what if you knew that the thing you were trying to fix wasn't great before? It wasn't healthy, it wasn't safe, it wasn't prosperous. So the clock became a symbol for me. Now here's the truth. Time is constant and keeps moving on, whether you're ready or not, whether you're holding on to what was or what you're reaching for, what's supposed to be. And the question isn't whether time is going to pass. It will. The question is, what are you going to do with the time that we have? And herein lies the lesson when disaster strikes. You cannot just rebuild what was. You've got to imagine. Treat yourself to the joy of imagining what could be. In New Orleans, we made a choice. We said we weren't going to build the city back the way it was. And instead of rebuilding for the past, we decided to rebuild for the future. We rebuilt the schools, all of them. Not just with new walls, but in the 21st century technology centers so our kids could soar. We reformed policing to be tough, but also to be smart. We worked on our jail population to make sure that those who were really violent stayed in and those that didn't went out. We reduced our jail population and our safety in the city went down. We invested in health clinics in neighborhoods so that people could get the care that they needed. We imagined a water management system that could live with the water. For the most courageous and the toughest about us, I hope that you know the water is going to win. You better figure that out fast. Because if you think that you bigger or faster or better than the water, I'm here to tell you that that has never been true. And we found that out in New Orleans, and I think that you found that out here. We diversified our economy yet again, and especially for Eastern Kentucky. We fought really hard to preserve our music and our culture. And over time, brick by brick, we turned tragedy into triumph. In New Orleans, now 20 years after Katrina, our city is a symbol of rebirth and resilience, resurrection and redemption. But you see, it's not just about buildings. A house is not necessarily a home. A church is not just the building. It's what you put inside of them. It's the people. It's the thing that you believe in that matters the most. It's what happens outside of those that make them what we call them to be. It's the community it creates. Now, to be clear, I don't sit here telling you that New Orleans is perfect, that we fixed everything. We still wrestle with crime, with poverty, with inequality, with all the things that you struggle with. Our growth has actually slowed in the last couple of years, primarily because the pandemic set back the economy. But what I am here to tell you is this: resilience is possible. Transformation is possible. Hope is possible. And I can see and feel that same spirit here in Eastern Kentucky. You know what it means to be knocked down. You know what it means to lose jobs when industries change. You know what it means to watch the water rise in your hollers and in your towns. But you also know what it means to stand back up. When I visited communities here that have faced challenges that are unimaginable, I've also seen communities refuse to give up. I've seen young people who could have left, who have every reason to leave, but chose to stay and fight for their home. I've seen entrepreneurs creating new businesses from scratch. I've seen artists and musicians, you saw one here today, try to create something new. I've been to the Apple shop in Whitesburg. They're an example of surviving and rebuilding. In the 2022 floods, it gutted and damaged the archives that document decades of Appalachian culture. But as neighbors do, they're continuing to rebuild and to make sure that Appalachian stories not only live on, but are shared far and wide. And by the way, just as an aside, if things are getting a little hazy and you don't understand and you want to hear the truth, follow your artists, listen to your storytellers and the poets. Corey, who was up here singing My Old Kentucky Home, wrote a song. The end of it is, come hell or high water, the mountains will prevail. That's a beautiful song. And that's a truth you need to hear. Don't forget your culture bearers. You see, that's the choice every community faces. Do we manage decline, or do we create growth? Do we accept that our best days are behind us, or do you believe your best days are yet to come? You've got great leaders here. Secretary of Economic Development here, the mayor, the judge was here, Governor Beshear, the son, not the papa. Of course, you know that. He was a great governor, too. Is going to be here tomorrow. You got great partners here with SOAR, who's going to do an unbelievable job. I've worked with all of these folks when I was in the White House overseeing the historic bipartisan infrastructure law. And let me tell you, you have no better champions in this region for your state than the team that you have. Governor Beshear shows up on time, on task. He gets around. He's where governors should be. And when you have governors and leaders like that, I tell you, I saw all of this stuff, the grit and the faith and the neighbor helping neighbor spirit that defines this region. I saw it when the floods came. I saw it in Breathitt, Knott, Letcher, and Perry counties. And just 2 months ago, whole neighborhoods were underwater. Your families were clinging to rooftops as well. Churches turned themselves into shelters, folks using their own boats, people using their four-wheelers, neighbors pulling neighbors out of water. The grief was unbearable. But you know, we saw the same thing here that we saw in New Orleans after Katrina, neighbors feeding each other when the power was out. Churches organizing supply drives, miners and teachers and nurses rolling up their sleeves side by side without waiting for somebody else to tell them what to do. That theme keeps coming up over and over and over again. Don't wait for permission. You can wait for forgiveness. Just get it done. That is Eastern Kentucky. That is the foundation upon which communities are built and rebuilt, and you have to know that more change is coming. We know, as we think and pray about our friends in Minneapolis, about the shootings yesterday, that more tragedy, unfortunately, is going to strike us throughout our life. The question isn't whether something is going to change. It will. The question is, what do you do next? Are we going to cling to what was? Are we going to have the courage to imagine something better? So let me be blunt, because I don't want to sugarcoat anything. When tragedy hits, you don't need speeches. You don't need platitudes. You need a government that works. When the floods came, you don't need politicians fighting with each other. You need coordination. You need communication. You need clear command and control. You need FEMA, state agencies, not-for-profits, churches, all rowing in the same direction. That's the lesson. Government has to work. Not a bloated government, not a broken government, but a lean, fast, compassionate, effective government. One that is on time, on task, under budget. Government's not the enemy, but you know what? It's not the savior either. It's just a tool. And like any tool, it only works if you know how to use it properly. You wouldn't use a hammer to fix a watch, and you shouldn't use a scalpel to try to build a house. You got to have the right tools. The art of governing well is knowing which tool to use when, and having the wisdom to step back when the community can handle things better on their own. But let me tell you something else, if I could. Rebuilding isn't just about pouring concrete. It is, in fact, about rebuilding trust, about rebuilding systems that serve everyone. That takes courage. It takes courage to say the old ways aren't enough. Courage to bring everybody to the table. Courage to look past differences, not let differences stop you. differences of race, differences of class, politics, and geography, and say this very simple truth, that we all rise or we all fall together. It's like a New Orleans gumbo. The whole is better than the sum of its part. Now, I didn't come here to give y'all an emerald cooking class, but y'all know what makes a good gumbo? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's not just the roux, although the roux is important. It's not just the chicken or the sausage, but it ought to be the best chicken and andouille sausage that you can find. It's not just, and here's something that y'all maybe don't know, the Holy Trinity. Now, what could possibly be called the Holy Trinity in a gumbo? That's the onions, the celery, and the green peppers all mixed together. It's how all the ingredients work together, how they soak into each other, how they complement each other. They create something that is greater than any single ingredient could be on their own. I believe that's what community is. I believe that is what America is supposed to be. Because here's the truth, as I believe it to be. No community, no state, no nation has ever triumphed turning inwards and closing its doors. Triumph and true greatness come when we open up, when we make room for everybody, when we embrace creativity, when we embrace innovation, when we welcome new ideas and new people. That, my friends, is when we create excellence. That's not a weakness, that's a strength. We know that places, towns, cities, counties, states, and countries that will attract people, create jobs, and grow wealth, and give our kids a better life than we had, which is what we all essentially want, will be places that are open, places that are inviting, places that are inclusive, entrepreneurial, creative, healthy, culturally rich, authentic, and smart. And yes, communities that embrace the love of faith, the love of family, the love of country. You're building that community right here. I've seen it. You're not abandoning your heritage. You're building on it. You're not losing your identity. You're expanding it. You're showing the world that Eastern Kentucky is where people come from. It's where people want to come to. This is more important than ever because of what we see out of Washington, D.C. A lot of fighting, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of division, pitting neighbors against each other. This is not about politics or a battle of political ideology. No. We're in the battle for the heart and soul of who we are, what we believe, and what we want to be. There are forces of division that want us to believe that we have to choose sides, that we can't love our traditions and welcome change, that we can't be proud of our past and at the same time be excited about a future, that we can't honor our faith and embrace our neighbors. But that's a false choice. That's not who we are. That's not who we have ever been. America has always been a place where different traditions come together to create something new. That is the source of America's greatness and America's excellence, where different perspectives compete in the marketplace of ideas, where different communities contribute their unique gifts to the common good. People are constantly asking themselves, man, I'm just a little guy or gal. What can I do? Not what can I take, what can I do? And my answer back to you is pretty simple. Well, what can you do? Because everything and anything matters, and all of it works. In your daily random acts of kindness, in your embrace of one another, in your work, in your community, in your trying to make the country fairer, more just, and better, you are showing what real patriotism and loving America looks like. So simply do what you can. Start where you are. Don't wait. Use what you have. You don't have to run for office to make a difference. You don't have to have $1 million in your pocket to change lives. You just have to care enough to act bit by bit, one step at a time, not from the top down, but from the bottom up, not from Washington, but from right here in Corbin. Try really, really hard not to be distracted by the noise. Because throughout our nation's history, including today, we too often allow ourselves to be divided by anger, by hate, by fear, We're told that working class means just white folks, and poor means black folks or brown folks, that immigrant means criminal. We're told it's a zero-sum game. We're told if one wins, the other person loses. But I don't believe that this is true. If you don't recall anything else that I say today, please consider this. Americans don't need to hold each other down or push each other away to claim our fair share of the American dream. Our country and this region will only thrive if we unite around a common purpose of shared opportunity and shared responsibility. And in regions just like this one, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to claim the future together. Before I close, let me leave you with a little bit of Cajun humor. If you're from down south, we know Thibodeau and Boudreaux. Now, Thibodeau and Boudreaux got tired of duck hunting in Louisiana. It's got the best ducks in the world. And they decided to go hunt moose in Canada for some reason. And they hired this little plane to fly them up there and to let them down on the tundra so they could go out hunting. And they did. And they bagged 6 moose, dragged them back to the plane, tried to put them on the plane. And the pilot said, "Sorry, fellas, but this plane only takes 4 moose. 6 moose is too heavy." Thibodeau and Boudreaux got on him real bad and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. Last year, we did the same thing. We came up here, we shot 6 moose, we yelled at the pilot, we put the 6 moose on the plane, so we want to do it again." And the pilot finally relented. They load the 6 moose on the plane takes off, and it immediately crashes. Thibodeau and Boudreaux are lying on top of all 6 moose. And Thibodeau says to Boudreaux, he says, "Hey, B, you know where we at?" And Boudreaux says to Thibodeau, "Yeah, we the same place we were last year when we crashed." So the moral of this story is really simple. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it don't work, you're going to end up in the same place if you stay alive. Now, you should have a lot of pride in the place where you are. This is a gorgeous place. You actually have everything that you need to find greatness, happiness, and wealth in both spiritual and material ways here in Corbin, Kentucky. But I'm here to tell you, change is coming. It's how you respond that's going to determine whether or not you prosper or whether or not you choose to live in the past. New Orleans, like Appalachia, has been typecast by the media, by Hollywood, by books. People don't know who we are. But you know what we're doing? We're changing the narrative by telling fuller stories and by changing the way the world thinks about our story. They see poverty and assume hopelessness. They see struggle and they assume defeat. They see rural and they put it on you and put you down and assume that you're backward. You're not. They see change and they assume loss, but they don't know what I know because they can't see what I see. I see hope. I see nothing but possibility. I see triumph waiting to happen. Some look and see the challenges. I look and see the possibilities. And you could and you should too, because I believe that where there is a will, there is a way. And by the way, if you can't find a way, you need to make one. I mean, Eastern Kentucky, you have a chance to show the nation what it looks like to turn tragedy into triumph. You have everything that you need. I can see it in my city. I saw it. I know it can happen. I can testify to the possibility. Our nation's counting on you. You have to lead the way. 20 years ago, people wrote off the city of New Orleans. They told us that we should move and that we shouldn't live there. They would try to put a green dot on the neighborhood where my mama's house lives, where she's been living for 92 years. She said not only no, but hell no. They said we'd never come back. They said the city was finished. They said people would never return. They were wrong. Today, the people are writing off communities across Appalachia. They're wrong too. Your story isn't over. Your story's just beginning. The next chapter is being written right now by this organization and by you. It's the choices you make. It's the dreams you pursue. Write one that proves America is wrong. That in America, no community is too strong. No challenge is too big. No dream is too bold. You have been, by the way, the engine of America before. You helped light this whole nation for over a century. Your sweat and your labor, you power our industries, our homes, our prosperity, and with the right investment, the right courage, and the same neighbor-to-neighbor spirit, I saw after the floods, Eastern Kentucky can lead again. I look forward to seeing the many people in this room make this story unfold. And I recall to you as I walk off this podium Corey's song that come hell or high water, the mountains will prevail. Thank you all very much. Thank you.